Now that we've spent some time discussing how to conceptualize and quantify uncertainty, in week 4 we will begin our study of a topic that's technically called inferencing, and it will be with us for the remainder of the course. The concept is fairly simple actually. We've said that statistics is all about extracting patterns from data, but the reality is that one often doesn't have all the data that one needs in order to draw conclusions. And that is typically arises because of not having sufficient time and or money. For example, if you want to find out how much customers are willing to pay for a new product that you are manufacturing, theoretically you need to talk to all customers, but that's not feasible for reasons of time and money. And so you talk to maybe a couple of hundred customers, and from that you try to draw conclusions. Or if you want to find the level of support for a political candidate, then theoretically you need to talk to all potential voters, but that's not feasible either. So you talk to a subset, maybe 1,000 of them, maybe 2,000 of them, maybe 10,000 of them, and from that try to draw some conclusions. So one is often faced with a situation where you make measurements on a subset, and from that you try to draw conclusions about a larger population. And that's the process of inferencing. And that always involves uncertainty, which is why we spend some time getting to know some basic concepts of uncertainty. So when we are doing inferencing, we will see how one draws conclusions, and more importantly, how one quantifies and describes the uncertainty associated with that inferencing. And in week 4 in particular, we will do one particular type of inferencing, which is called interval estimation. And I'll show you a couple of examples of it. Now, as we go through week 4, there's a very central concept that I would ask for you to pay attention to and see if you can get a handle on it. And that's the concept of a sampling distribution. So the term may not mean anything to you right now as we are starting the week, but as we dive through the material, try to get a handle on this concept. This concept of a sampling distribution is absolutely central to understanding inferencing. Okay, so as I did in prior weeks, let me look at the syllabus here. So we are in week 4. So you have specifically sections from chapter 7 and sections from chapter 8 for which you're responsible for week 4. So as in prior weeks, you're welcome to read other sections of those chapters, but those are the sections for which you are specifically responsible. Okay, coming back to this topic of inferencing, and in particular confidence intervals, that's the type of inferencing that we will be talking about this week. Let's look at a couple of examples of what kind of activities we're talking about. So in a manufacturing setting, the first example is in a manufacturing setting. Very often when you're manufacturing widgets, in this case it's baseballs, widgets have to be manufactured to certain specifications. Okay. For example, here we are manufacturing baseballs, and I understand that they're technically required to weigh between 141.75 and 148.83 grams for use in the major league. And let's say we are buying these balls from a manufacturer who will supply these to us. How confident are we that the new baseballs that we are getting will fulfill our specifications? Now, technically, again, here we would need to measure each and every baseball that we acquire. That's not feasible. So we would inspect maybe 50 of them, maybe 100 of them. And based on that measurement, we will try to draw some conclusions about whether or not the population of all the baseballs as a whole, the ones that we are getting, meet those specifications. So this is an example of an inferencing situation where we are trying to estimate the the average weight of these baseballs within a certain range. Okay. Same thing in the second example over here. You're trying to form an estimate of sales figures, and again, you can't look at all the population as a whole. So you will look at a subset of the population, and from that you will try to draw some conclusions. The third example was the political example that I was given. I'm sure you have read statements like this, that 48% or some percentage of likely voters supports candidate X. And along with that, the polling company, let's say Gallup or somebody, will say our polling has a margin of error of plus or minus 3 percentage points. So this concept of a margin of error, in other words, I can't tell you exactly what the measurement is, but based on the subset that I looked at, I will give you a range within which I expect the values to lie with a high degree of confidence. So we are trying to come up with some margin of error within which the value, our prediction will lie with a high degree of confidence. So that is the basic idea behind interval estimation. So again, let me remind you that the theoretical concept that you should try and get a handle on as we go through this week is this concept of a sampling distribution. It will be central to not just this week's content, but also next week's and the following few weeks.